Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood. And this is another video using the rotary, and specifically I'm going to show you how I get a perfect circular shape on a tapered cylinder. So you may be familiar with some of the headaches of trying to put a logo or an image that's a perfect circle on a cylinder. You're trying to engrave it on a tumbler or a glass, and it's just not coming out round. It's perfect circle. You go put it on that cylindrical shape, and it comes out anything but. So let's talk about those headaches. And some of you may have heard, well, just add 10%. And that kind of works, and add 10% of what? But I've got a different way of doing it because I'm different. And let's for some of those though have not done this, let's show them the headaches of putting round circular images, graphics on a cylinder. And then there's also the issue of then taking in tapered cylinders, tapered glasses, like pint glasses, into consideration. Those are another set of headaches. So what I have here is a regular rocks glass, and I have a cutout taped to it. And what shape do you see there? It's kind of oval shaped. It's kind of like an egg, an oval actually. And then if I spin it around, I have a larger one, and it's more circular. But what are they really? This oval shaped, egg shape, that is actually a perfect circle. But when you wrap it onto the glass, it now becomes oval shaped. This one is a lot more circular, a lot more symmetrical, if you will, on the glass. But that one is an oval. But it looks round on the glass. And the difference there between those two is the difference of 10%. So you have another obstacle, and I've got it on the laser right now. When you're going to want to put a round image on a glass with a taper. That is another obstacle to overcome. And let's just take a look at some images here of the on a tapered glass. And what I do whenever I'm trying to determine size, placement, exactly how I'm going to set it up. Well, what you're seeing there is I will actually create what I think is going to be the perfect image or size or shape, and cut it out of cardstock, and then tape it onto the glass or the tumbler that I'm going to be doing, so I can sit back and say, okay, yeah, no, that size is just a bit big, or no, the higher, lower. That way I'm not wasting anything except for a piece of paper. And here are a few photographs of what I did with a pint glass to try and get the perfect circular shape. Let's see here. Here is a pint glass with one shape on it. And then, let's see, can I go? Nope. There we go, there's another. And then another. Now there's all three side by side. So you can see a very, very distinct difference between those three logos, or those three shapes. That one looks really good and round. That one has a little bit of egg shape to it. And that one's completely distorted. And again, all of them side by side. So which is which? What's the difference, and how do we get from here to here? Well, there's a lot of math involved to figure out the size, the placement, the shapes, and that's what we're going to go over in this video. So if this is something you are interested in learning, you're going to want to watch this video without hopping around, because if you do, I promise you're going to screw it up, you're going to miss something, and I'm not going to reply nicely to the comments and questions when it's in the video. I promise you, it's in the video. So one of the first things I determine is how large is my graphic going to be on the glass or the tumbler that I'm going to be engraving. How large does that image need to be in LightBurn? And what I do there is start taking some physical measurements of my glass or my tumbler. And I have a couple of things, and these are my personal preference. It's what I feel looks best. You may have a different opinion, and we all know what opinions are like. But this is my method. First thing I do is I measure the height of the glass. How tall is that glass? And just to mess with you, I'll work with inches and millimeters. I'll go back and forth. This glass is 6 inches tall. So if it's 6 inches tall, halfway is 3 inches. Well, putting the logo in the very center of the glass, to me, doesn't look good. I like it to be just above center. And I also take into consideration the circumference of the glass to determine the overall size of that graphic. But the circumference where? Because it's a tapered cylinder. You got a major circumference up top, you got a minor circumference at the bottom, then your median here. So where do you measure to get that circumference? That's why I figure out my placement first. Where's the center of my graphic going to be? So if it's 6 inches tall and 3 inches is the center and 3 inches is not where I want it, I then look at what is the difference, what's halfway of there. So that's 1.5 inches up, that's too tall, but half of that back, 2¼ inches from the top, or 3/4 inches from the center. So I come to the halfway point and then go half of halfway again. So I'm up 1.5 inches and then go up 3/4 of an inch. And that's where, and that's on a 6 inch glass. If it was an 8 inch glass, then I'm going to go to 4 inches, and then half of 4 would be 2, and then I go up another inch. So on an 8 inch glass, I would come 5 inches from the bottom. There's probably a percentage for that. In fact, I need to figure that out real fast. That'll help me out in the future. So I'm coming 3.375. So what is that? 3.75 divided by 6 equals 62.5%. So if that was right, then 8 times 0.625, yeah. So 62.5% is how high I come from the bottom of the glass for the center of my logo. So now I just learned that, and that's what I do. When I learn something, I share it with you guys, and sometimes it's in real time, just like this is. In the past, I've always just measured half and then come up half of half, which is always going to be the same, 62.5%. And I just figured that out. So I come up to that approximate area on the glass, and now I will measure the circumference of the glass at that point. And using my fabric tape, roll it around here and measure. At that point, we're coming up to right at 255 millimeters, or 25.5 centimeters. 255 millimeters. So 255 millimeters. What I'm going to do for cutting out my paper template, I'm just going to draw a circle. But how big does that circle need to be? Well, I just determined that my circumference is 255 millimeters. So when I'm looking at this glass from head on, I can easily see 25% of that glass without the logo being too far stretched around the side. 33%, or a third of the glass, now it's wrapping around pretty good. I want my logo as large as I can get it, but not have it completely where I'm having to twist the glass to read it. So I go with 28%. So if my diameter, or not my diameter, if my circumference is 255 millimeters times 28%, that's 71.4 millimeters. So I will make my graphic 71.4 millimeters is my desired outcome. That's the size that I want to put on the glass. Now, I've already demonstrated to you that a perfect circle does not look good on a cylinder, be it a regular straight glass or a taper glass. The perfect circle doesn't work. So what is the perfect image for a cylindrical shape? Well, you may have seen people talk about adding 10% or subtracting 10%, but what are they adding or subtracting? And well, for me, what I do is I will, instead of adding, I'll take that same glass and my tape, and I'm going to measure the diameter of the top of the glass. Find the edge of my tape, and I'll measure that diameter, and on this glass it is 88 millimeters. 88 millimeters is the diameter of the top of the glass. Well, instead of adding 10%, I subtract 10% of the diameter from the height of my logo. So I'm going to select that circle. I'm going to unlock my aspect ratio, and I'm going to come to the height, and I'm going to subtract 8% of 88 millimeters, which is 8.8 millimeters. So subtract, and you can go right here into that tool where it says 71.4, enter your subtraction, and then put in your amount, 8.8. And that will shrink that to the perfect shape if you're doing it on a cylindrical piece that meets these same measurements. So if you're not working on a 6-inch glass, and you're not working on a glass with 255 millimeter circumference with an 88 millimeter diameter, these sizes will not work for you. That's why you'll have to do the math yourself on the shape that you're working with. But that's if you're working on a glass with no taper. Well, how do you figure the taper? Well, in order to work on the taper, you need to know what the angle of that side of the glass is, or the tumbler. And if you're working in a real wood shop, you might have angle finders laying around that you use on your table saws, where you can take and magnetic, angle finder, you snap on your saw blade and tell you what degree your blade's at. Well, I don't have any of that. But I do have a smartphone. Smartphone. So, what I have on my smartphone is an app. It's called Bubble Level. And it's a really nice app. I use it for a lot of things. Use it in the shop a lot, and I use it when hanging pictures. And the Bubble app, aside from having, because I don't pay for it, I use the free app, and it has ads, pop-up ads, but it has multiple levels in it. So depending on where you need to find, a horizontal or vertical level, you've got multiple levels. But you also have a level for doing a tabletop to find, a perfect flat level. But in addition to the bubble levels, it also has what I refer to as an inclinometer. It's the little graph right there at the bottom, and there it's showing you the X, the tilt, and if you recline it even, you can get, there we go, an XY. You can actually get an XY measurement. But I'll use this app to determine the angle of my tumbler or my glass. Now, the trick to this is this needs to be sitting on a flat, level surface. So put it on a tabletop. You can check the level, make sure she's level. And then once you've got that sitting flat, with your bubble level open, just take that and hold it right up beside the edge of the glass. You want to make sure that the bottom of your phone is clear of your tabletop and you are getting flush against your glass, and then take that measurement. And on this glass, it's measuring 6 degrees. 6 degrees. So now you've got your taper angle, but how does that translate to your graphic? Well, we need to, in fact, I'm going to put this bubble on a black layer. There we go. Now I'm going to go to the toolpath. I'm going to draw out a square. And my original size was 71.4 millimeters. 71.4. And I left my aspect ratio unlocked, but there we go. Now I'm going to center that over the circle. And I'm going to need that toolpath in just a minute to move things around. So you've got to have that circle, or that square, that toolpath. And if you notice here, it's right up to the edge, because the original size of that circle was 71.4 millimeters in total diameter. But we reduced it on the height by 8.8 or 10% of the opening of the top of the glass. Now what we need to do is take the taper into play, and what we're going to do there is I'm going to come to my pencil tool, and I'm going to draw a straight line starting there at the top of that toolpath, come down to the bottom of the toolpath, and one more time over here. And now I need to put those on a path where I can see them, so I'm going to select it and put that on a red layer, and we'll put that one on the red layer just so we can see it. Now what I need to do is I need to replicate the angle of the taper on the glass, but I need to do it in the inverse. So I'm going to select this line over here, and I'm going to tell it to rotate 6 degrees, which was our, not 60, I just did a boo-boo. Alright, and also, and I'm glad I did that boo-boo, when you do this rotation, you need to make sure that your anchor point, which is these 9 dots up here, you have your anchor point in the very center. And you're going to tell it to rotate 6 degrees. This one over here, we're going to rotate it negative 6 degrees. But I'm going to show you what happens when you don't have your anchor point in the right place. If you got your anchor point down here and you tell it rotate it -6 degrees, then that gives you an undesired outcome. It's now rotated at 6 degrees from this bottom instead of rotating it from the center. And we need to rotate it from the center. And we're going to go -6 degrees. Alright, now that has just created the inverted taper of the actual glass. And that's what we have to have. We don't want the same taper. We want to counter the taper of the glass by creating the inverted taper. Now that we have that done, draw from the left to right, selecting the toolpath and your graphic, and then come up to Tools and go to Warp Selection, 4 points. And that'll give you what you see here with the 4 blue dots. And we're going to use the Warp tool to move our, distort and warp our image to the desired outcome. And if we hold the Shift button and drag this top blue dot over to the top of that line, when holding the Shift button, it will move the left and right together. Hold the Shift button and we're going to drag this one out to that line. Come on, snap to my line. There we go. After doing that, we're done with the toolpath and those lines, so we can select them and delete them. And that, ladies and germs, is the perfect shape for doing it on this glass. It's only going to work if you had the exact same glass for you. And you probably won't have the exact same one, and you should probably, even if you get a batch of glasses or a box of glasses, you don't want to assume that they've all come out of the same batch and they're all identical. You want to check them and make sure that they're all identical before you engrave something and find out you wasted a ton of time. But this is how I get that shape to cut out in my paper, to test it, to test the placement, test the overall size. You can do that really, really quick. Do a quick cutout, tape it to the glass and say, okay, yeah, I like it. No, it's too big. Or whatever. But now we're going to show you how I do that with the actual logo and how fast it can be. Because now I've done all the homework. I've done all the tests. I know what I need to do. I know what my measurements are. I don't have to go back and figure it all. All I need to do is bring in my logo and apply the same method to it. It'd be nice if you could bring your logo in and tell it to stretch and fill this shape, but LightBurn doesn't have that ability. Not to my knowledge. So I'm going to just set this over here to the side for right now. I'm going to go to my art library, bring in my USMC logo, import, or add graphic to project. And this logo is something I worked on for a long time to get it as nice and as detailed as this is, even down to having the Semper Fidelis in there. And this engraves really, really nicely in LightBurn. But we're going to make it so small that that's not going to be readable, but it'll be there, but it won't be readable. Alright, so we know we need to have this at 71.4 millimeters. So 71.4, 71.4. And actually, I could have just said, in fact, since I already knew the math, I could have started from the beginning here and just said, alright, I need my width to be 71.4. And that's 28% of the circumference of the desired location on the glass. And here I want 71.4 less 10% of the 88 millimeters. And there I've got my immediate oval shape. And now I just need to reduce it by the 6%. So I come in here, select my toolpath, draw a square, tell it 71.4 by 71.4, hold my shift button and select the logo and tell it to center up. Now I will draw a couple of lines select the first line, anchor points in the center, rotate it 6 degrees, select the second line, rotate it -6 degrees, select my toolpath and my logo, go to Tools, Warp Selection, hold my Shift button, draw in the top, still holding my Shift, draw out the bottom, snap to the line. There we go. And now I can delete my toolpath and my lines, and that should be the exact same thing. And there you go. That works. So if I had already cut out that toolpath and did a trial test fit, then I know that logo is going to be perfect on my glass. Now it sure looks funny right there, but the outcome is going to surprise you. Okay, so we've got this finished logo, and with the magic of YouTube, I've taken this design and engraved it on my pint glass, and here is the end result. And for me, that's about as good as it's going to get in a homemade laser lab. Yeah, I don't even know if a professional laser shop, engraving shop, is going to get much nicer than that on a tapered cylinder. I'm extremely happy with that outcome. So hopefully you learned a little something from this. And again, as I said in the beginning, this is my way of doing this. You may find that you want to tweak it a little bit. Maybe you don't want to reduce it by 10%. Maybe it's you want to do a little, you might tweak it and play with it. Go for it. This works for me, and it works well enough that I've never had any complaints with it. I hope you found it informative. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you don't fully understand it, I recommend go back and watch it again. It's not that difficult. I am happy to answer questions if you don't fully understand how I got to somewhere. But if you ask me a question that's very blatantly answered in the video, I'm just going to reply. Go watch the video. I want to take a second and thank my patrons. Your support for this channel is invaluable. I wouldn't be here without you, and your support is greatly appreciated. We just passed Thanksgiving, and you are one of the top 3 things that I'm most thankful for this year. So thank you. If you want to consider becoming a patron, go over to patreon.com/hobowithwood and can sign up for any level of support's greatly appreciated. I'm not being dishonest when I feel like I tell you the gold level tier is the best value. You get more files and more information for your investment in me than the other sub levels. And it is greatly appreciated. But if it's not in the budget, any level of support is extremely grateful. I'm extremely grateful for that. If you can't become a patron, you always have the option on any of the videos to go down below and click on the super thanks, little $sign down there. Super thanks. If you found a particular video extremely helpful and informative, this is one of those that I feel like for someone doing a lot of tumblers and a lot of cylinders, there's a lot of valuable information in this. So I do believe it's definitely super thanks worthy. Hobowithwood.com. That's my website for all the files. I try to put stuff up there new every week. Check it out. Support me however you can. It is greatly appreciated. We're coming up on Christmas, and I'm thinking about doing something special in the month of December. No, I'm not thinking about it. I am going to do something special in the month of December for my patrons. If you are a patron before the 1st of December, it is now November 28th, so you've got 3 days, counting today, to jump over to Patreon and become a patron. I am going to have a special gift for all of my patrons that are patrons prior to December 1st. Anybody that joins it'll be a different gift for anybody that joins in the month of December. There'll be a gift for those that join after the fact, but for those who are a supporter before the December 1st, they're going to get a really special bonus. So guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging around, and I will see you in the next video. I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood, and I'm out.